My mother forged documents, making herself beneficiary of my life insurance and 401k because she created me. She lost her mind when I cut all financial support. My mother, Rita, truly believed she owned me because she gave birth to me. Like that 9 months of pregnancy meant I owed her everything forever. For the past 7 years since I graduated college and got my job as a financial analyst, she hasn't worked a single day. She quit her receptionist job the week I got hired because she said her work was done raising me, and now it was my turn to take care of her. She was 52 and perfectly healthy, but acted like she was 90 and dying. I paid her rent on a luxury apartment downtown because she said she deserved to live somewhere nice after sacrificing so much for me. The sacrifice she meant was doing the bare minimum required to not get arrested for child neglect. But I paid because she'd call crying about how she'd be homeless without me. She had 3 credit cards in my name that she maxed out every month buying clothes and jewelry and wine. When I tried to cancel them, she showed up at my office screaming that I was an ungrateful daughter trying to starve my own mother. My boss told me to handle my family drama, so I gave her the cards back. She'd literally laugh when I asked her to get a job. She'd say her job was being my mother and that was a lifetime position. She'd remind me how she could have aborted me but didn't, so I owed her everything. When I said I was struggling to pay my own bills plus hers, she'd say that's what children do for parents who love them. Except her version of love was taking everything and giving nothing back. Her boyfriend Kyle lived with her rent-free in the apartment I paid for. He didn't work either and drove the car I'd leased for her. They'd go on vacations using my credit cards and send me pictures from beaches saying thanks for the gift. When I said I never agreed to pay for vacations, she'd say I was being cheap and embarrassing her in front of Kyle. Her sister Donna would call asking for money because Rita told her I was rich. Her friend Gloria had my credit card number because Rita gave it to her for emergencies, which apparently meant weekly shopping trips. They all acted like I was the family bank, and Rita encouraged it because she loved looking generous with money she didn't earn. Then 4 months ago, I found out what she was really doing. My cousin Heather called to warn me that Rita was telling everyone she was planning to retire to Florida with Kyle using her inheritance. When Heather asked what inheritance, Rita laughed and said I was her inheritance, and she'd already put herself on my life insurance. I checked and she was right. Rita had forged documents making herself the beneficiary of everything. My life insurance, my 401k, even my investment accounts. She'd used her key to my apartment to get my personal documents. When I confronted her, she didn't even pretend to be sorry. She said it only made sense since she created me, so everything I had was technically hers anyway. She said I should be grateful she let me keep any money for myself. When I said I was cutting her off, she laughed and said I'd never abandoned my own mother. She said nobody would respect a daughter who let her mother be homeless. She said I was too weak and too trained to ever leave. Then she went shopping with Kyle using my credit card. That's when I realized she was right about one thing. I was trained. Trained by her to be her personal ATM. But training can be broken. I called my bank and reported all the cards as stolen. I closed every account she had access to. I called the apartment complex and gave them 30 days notice that I was ending the lease. I contacted my insurance and investment companies and removed her from everything, filing fraud reports for the forged documents. I changed my locks and got security cameras. The lawyer I hired said I could press charges for identity theft and fraud, but I decided to just cut her off completely. Rita didn't believe it at first. She tried to use the cards at a restaurant and they were declined in front of Kyle and all their friends. She called me screaming and I didn't answer. She showed up at my apartment but couldn't get in. She stood outside for 3 hours yelling that I was killing my mother until the police made her leave. The next morning, my phone screen showed 47 missed calls from Rita. I scrolled through them with my coffee cup shaking in my other hand. The voicemail from Donna played on speaker while I stared at my kitchen counter. She said the whole family thought I was terrible for abandoning my mother. She said Rita was crying all night because her own daughter turned her back on her. She said I should be ashamed. I blocked both their numbers and tried to drink my coffee, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept telling myself I did the right thing, but my stomach felt sick anyway. The coffee tasted wrong and I poured it down the sink. I got ready for work moving like a robot, brushing my teeth and putting on my work clothes without really thinking about what I was doing. Every few minutes, I'd check my phone to see if Rita found another way to contact me. At the office, I barely sat down at my desk before Gregory called me into his office. He closed the door behind me and gestured to the chair across from his desk. He said Rita showed up in the lobby yesterday afternoon. She was demanding to see me and security had to escort her out. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face. He said he understood family situations could be complicated. He said he felt bad for what I was going through. But then his voice changed and got more serious. He said if my personal drama disrupted the office again, it would become a professional problem for me. I nodded and apologized and promised it wouldn't happen again. Walking back to my desk, I felt like everyone was staring at me, even though most people probably had no idea what happened. 2 days later, a certified letter arrived at my apartment. The apartment complex was confirming Rita's lease would end in 23 days. But they were also billing me for 2 months of unpaid utilities she racked up. The total was $347 for electricity and water she used but never paid for. I sat on my couch holding the letter and wanting to scream. Even after cutting her off, she was still costing me money. I could refuse to pay and let it damage my rental history, or I could pay it and let her get away with one more thing. I logged into my bank account and paid the utility bill because I couldn't afford to have rental problems when I needed to move someday. My savings account that I'd been so proud of dropped back down. I was so angry I had to go for a walk around my neighborhood just to calm down. Rita started her Facebook campaign the same week. She posted about how her ungrateful daughter was making her homeless. She tagged distant relatives I barely remembered, and family friends I hadn't seen since I was a kid. The post said she gave me everything, and now I was throwing her away like garbage. She said she didn't know how she raised such a cold person. Within 2 days, my message requests filled up with people I hadn't spoken to in years. They all said basically the same thing. I should be ashamed of myself. How could I treat my mother this way? Family takes care of family. One cousin I met twice at funerals said I was breaking her heart. An old friend of Rita's said she always knew I was selfish. I didn't respond to any of them, but I read every message and felt worse each time. The security camera footage came through on a Thursday evening. Kyle showed up at my apartment building around 6 in the afternoon. The camera caught him trying different key combinations on my door for 20 minutes. He'd punch in 4 numbers, wait, try again. He did this over and over, getting more frustrated each time. He finally gave up and kicked my door before walking away. I saved the footage to 3 different places and sent it to Miranda Richards, the attorney I hired. She called me back within an hour. She said this footage strengthened my case significantly if I decided to pursue a restraining order. She said it showed clear intent to gain unauthorized access to my home. She asked if I wanted to move forward with that, and I said I'd think about it. I wasn't sure I wanted to escalate things that much yet. The 30-day notice expired on a Tuesday. Rita called me that morning sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She said she and Kyle were literally being evicted tomorrow. She said they had nowhere to go and would be sleeping in their car. She said if I had any humanity at all, I would at least pay for a cheap motel until she figured something out. She said she was my mother and she didn't deserve to be homeless. Her voice got higher and more desperate. She said she was begging me. I sat on my bed holding the phone and feeling physically sick. My whole body wanted to say yes and fix it. But I said no and hung up. Then I threw up in my bathroom and cried for an hour. Heather called me 2 days later with information that changed everything. Rita actually moved in with Gloria 2 days before the eviction happened. The crying call about being homeless was a manipulation test to see if I would break. Heather said Gloria told her cousin, who told Heather. Rita had a backup plan the entire time. She was never going to be homeless. She just wanted to see if she could still control me with guilt. I was so angry I couldn't even speak for a minute. But I also felt relieved knowing she wasn't actually on the street. Heather said Rita was telling Gloria that I would come crawling back within a month. She said Rita was convinced I couldn't survive without taking care of her because that's all I'd ever done. I met with Miranda the following week at her office downtown. She spread out all the documentation on her conference table. The forged signatures on my beneficiary forms looked almost like my handwriting, but not quite right. Miranda pointed out all the small differences where Rita messed up. She showed me the dates Rita filed the changes without my knowledge. She explained I had a very strong case for identity theft charges. The evidence was clear and well documented. But then she looked at me seriously. She said if we pursued prosecution, Rita could face jail time. She said Rita would have a permanent criminal record, and she asked me to really think about whether that's what I wanted. I stared at all the papers spread across the table and didn't know what to say. My cousin's birthday party happened that Saturday at a restaurant across town. Half the family wouldn't even look at me when I walked in. They turned their backs or suddenly found something interesting on their phones. The other half quietly pulled me aside throughout the night. They said they were proud I finally stood up to Rita. They said it was about time someone did. My aunt grabbed my arm near the bathroom and pulled me into a quiet corner. She said Rita did the exact same thing to my grandmother for years before she died. She said my grandmother paid Rita's bills and gave her money constantly. She said when my grandmother died, Rita was angry she didn't leave her more in the will. I had no idea any of this happened. My aunt said the family doesn't talk about it because Rita gets so angry when anyone brings it up. Rita somehow got my new cell number by the next week. The voicemail she left said she was having chest pains and might be having a heart attack. She said she couldn't afford to go to the hospital because she had no money thanks to me. She said if something happened to her, it would be my fault. Her voice sounded weak and scared. I listened to it 3 times, feeling panic build in my chest. Then I called Gloria directly. Gloria sighed when she heard my voice. She said Rita was fine and just ate too much pasta at dinner. She said Rita was sitting right there on the couch watching television. I thanked her and hung up. That's when I realized every health crisis from now on would be a potential manipulation. Every emergency would be a test. I couldn't trust anything Rita said anymore because she'd proven she would lie about anything to get what she wanted. Xavier Cook called me on a Tuesday morning while I was getting ready for work. The detective's voice sounded tired when he told me they finished going through all Rita's financial records. They found another credit card she opened in my name last year at a department store I never even shopped at. The balance was $8,000 for furniture and electronics she bought for the apartment I paid for. Combined with everything else, the total fraudulent debt came to $22,000. I sat down on my bathroom floor still holding my toothbrush and tried to process that number. $22,000 she stole using my name and my credit. Xavier said the store card made the case even stronger because Rita signed my name on the application, and they had security footage of her doing it. He asked if I wanted to add it to the fraud report, and I said yes. After I hung up, I was late for work because I couldn't stop staring at that number written on the notepad by my sink. The credit card hearing happened 3 weeks later in a conference room at the main office downtown. I brought 2 folders full of documentation, including all the police reports and fraud affidavits, and the forged signature samples Miranda helped me organize. 3 representatives from different credit card companies sat across the table looking through everything, while I explained how Rita had access to my personal information. They asked questions about why I didn't notice the charges sooner, and I had to admit I was too busy trying to keep up with her spending to check every statement carefully. The woman from the store card company seemed sympathetic when she saw the security footage Xavier provided, showing Rita at the customer service desk. After 2 hours, they agreed to remove all the fraudulent debt from my credit report and mark the accounts as identity theft. But they warned me the process would take 4 to 6 months, and my credit score had already dropped 90 points. I left that building feeling relieved about the debt removal, but sick about how long Rita's damage would follow me. Gregory caught me in the hallway the next day and pulled me into an empty conference room. He looked uncomfortable when he told me Rita called the office yesterday claiming to be someone from my doctor's office. She said I was having a mental health crisis, and they needed to reach me urgently about my medication. The receptionist believed her at first, and almost gave out my personal cell number before getting suspicious and transferring the call to HR instead. Gregory said HR was now involved because this counted as harassment affecting my workplace. And I had to write a formal statement explaining the entire situation with Rita, including the fraud case and the cutoff and why she might be targeting my job. Sitting in the HR office writing out everything that happened made me feel exposed and embarrassed. The HR manager assured me they understood family situations could be complicated, but asked me to let them know immediately if Rita tried contacting the office again. Walking back to my desk, I felt everyone's eyes on me, even though probably nobody knew what happened. I found out about Rita's new story when my cousin on my dad's side sent me screenshots from Facebook. Rita posted photos of jewelry and clothes and a laptop she claimed she bought for me over the years as proof she financially supported me. She captioned them saying her ungrateful daughter was now claiming Rita stole from her, when really I was the thief who took advantage of a generous mother. The comments were full of family members I barely knew saying they always thought I seemed selfish, and now they understood why. Some people I actually had relationships with were defending Rita, saying they couldn't believe I would treat my own mother this way. I scrolled through 40 comments watching my family choose sides based on Rita's lies. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. Heather called me within an hour after seeing the same posts and told me not to respond publicly, because that's what Rita wanted. She said Rita was trying to bait me into a social media fight she could use as more proof I was unstable. But sitting there reading people call me a liar and a thief while Rita played victim made me want to scream. I had to decide if defending myself was worth engaging with her manipulation, or if some family relationships were just over now. Kyle's LinkedIn message appeared in my inbox on a Friday afternoon. The preview showed it was long, so I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. He wrote 3 paragraphs explaining he never knew the money wasn't Rita's until after I cut her off and the card stopped working. He said Rita told him she had a trust fund from her parents, and that's why she didn't need to work. He said he felt terrible about the vacations and the car and living in that apartment once he realized it was all fraud. He was moving out and getting his own place and his own job because he couldn't be part of her lies anymore. The last paragraph said he thought I should know Rita had been lying to him about other things too, including telling him I was mentally ill and dangerous. He said he was sorry for believing her, and sorry for benefiting from what she did to me. I read the message 4 times trying to figure out if this was another manipulation, or if Kyle actually felt bad. Heather said it didn't matter either way because Kyle was still a grown man who lived rent-free off my money for 2 years. But part of me felt slightly better knowing at least one person saw through Rita's act. 2 months after cutting Rita off completely, I checked my bank account while sitting in my car after work. The number at the top made me blink and check again because it seemed wrong. $4,000 in savings. Money that was actually mine that nobody could take or spend or claim they deserved. I hadn't seen a number that high in my account since college before Rita quit her job. My hands started shaking, and then I was crying in the parking lot of my office building because I forgot what financial security felt like. For 7 years, I lived paycheck to paycheck despite making decent money, because every dollar went to funding Rita's life. Now I had enough saved to handle an emergency or take a vacation or just exist without panic. A coworker knocked on my window asking if I was okay, and I had to wipe my face and pretend I just got emotional about something on the radio. Driving home, I kept thinking about that number and what it represented. Freedom from being someone's personal bank account. Proof that I could actually build something for myself. Donna called me on a Wednesday evening with a shaky voice saying Rita was in the hospital. She said Rita got diagnosed with a serious illness and needed money for treatment right away. She said the medical bills were piling up and Rita was too proud to ask me directly, but Donna knew I would want to help my own mother. I felt my stomach drop hearing those words because part of me immediately wanted to fix it. But then I remembered the fake heart attack and the chest pains that were actually just pasta. I asked Donna for the name of the hospital and Rita's doctor, so I could send payment directly to make sure it went to medical care. Donna got quiet, and then flustered, saying she didn't have that information on her right now. I said I would be happy to pay the hospital directly once she gave me the details. She stammered something about needing to call me back and then hung up fast. I sat there holding my phone knowing it was another lie but still feeling guilty for not immediately offering money. That's how good Rita was at training me to respond to her emergencies. Miranda's office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown when I met with her the following week. She spread out 2 different sets of legal documents on her desk. One set was for criminal charges against Rita that could result in jail time and a permanent record. The other set was for a civil fraud case that would create legal documentation of what she did without criminal prosecution. Miranda walked me through both options and their consequences while I stared at the papers, unable to decide. For 3 days, I went back and forth feeling torn between wanting justice and wanting to just move forward with my life. Criminal charges meant years of court appearances and testimony and keeping Rita in my life through the legal system. Civil documentation meant I could prove what happened without dedicating years to prosecution. Finally, I told Miranda I wanted the civil case with full legal documentation, but I didn't want to pursue criminal charges. I wanted to rebuild my life, not spend it in courtrooms. Miranda said she understood and started preparing the civil fraud paperwork. Rita's Facebook posts changed around 3 months after I cut her off. Instead of playing victim, she started complaining about her new job as a receptionist at a dental office. She posted about having to wake up early and deal with difficult patients and how exhausting working was after so long. I stared at those posts, feeling anger build in my chest because she was always capable of supporting herself. For 7 years, she convinced me she couldn't function without my money, when really she just didn't want to work. She chose to quit her job and live off me because it was easier and more comfortable. All those times she said she was too old or too tired or too broken to work were lies. She got a job within weeks of losing my financial support, which proved she could have been working this entire time. I thought about all the money I gave her and all the debt she created and all the stress I carried believing I was responsible for keeping her alive. She was never actually helpless. She was just lazy and manipulative. The therapist's office was in a quiet building near the park with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. Her name was on the door with credentials listing family financial abuse as a specialty. I picked her specifically because I needed someone who understood this wasn't normal parent-child dynamics. During our first session, she asked me to describe my relationship with Rita, and I ended up talking for 40 minutes straight. She listened without interrupting, and then said something that made me stop breathing for a second. She said what Rita did was deliberate exploitation, not love or family obligation. She said healthy parents don't forge documents or steal identities, or demand their children fund their entire lives. She said the guilt I felt was a tool Rita installed in me through years of manipulation. We started meeting weekly to work through everything, and some sessions I cried the whole time. The guilt still hit me in waves, especially when I saw mothers and daughters shopping together or laughing in restaurants. I would watch them and wonder what it felt like to have a mother who wanted the best for you instead of wanting everything from you. Heather texted me asking if I wanted to get coffee that weekend, and I said yes, even though part of me worried it would turn into another family lecture about Rita. We met at a cafe near the park, and she showed up with an actual apology ready before I even ordered. She said she needed to tell me something she should have said years ago. Rita tried the exact same thing with her when Heather first got her teaching job. Rita told Heather she should help support the family and started asking for money every week. Heather's parents found out and shut it down immediately. They told Rita she couldn't manipulate their daughter, and if she tried again, they would cut contact completely. Heather said she watched me struggle for years and didn't warn me because she thought maybe Rita had changed, or maybe it was different with me since I was Rita's actual daughter. She started crying and said she was sorry for not protecting me when she knew what Rita was capable of doing. I told her it wasn't her fault, and that I didn't blame her for not getting involved in someone else's family mess. We ended up talking for 3 hours about everything Rita had done, and how weird it felt to grieve someone who was still alive, but never really acted like a mother anyway. Heather suggested we start having regular dinners, and I agreed because I needed someone who understood without judging. Over the next few weeks, we met every Tuesday, and I could actually talk about the complicated feelings without someone telling me I should forgive Rita or give her another chance. 4 months after cutting Rita off, I looked at my bank account and realized I had enough money saved to do something I'd never done before. I booked a week at a beach rental by myself using money that was actually mine. No credit card debt, no panic about how I would pay rent next month, just savings I'd built up by not funding someone else's entire life. I drove 6 hours to a small beach town and spent the first day just sitting on the sand watching the ocean. I read 4 books that week. I slept until 10 every morning. I ate breakfast on the deck and didn't check my phone for emergencies. Nobody called crying about being homeless. Nobody needed me to solve a crisis or pay a bill or fix a problem they created. I just existed for myself, and it felt strange and guilty and wonderful all at the same time. On the last day, I sat on the beach at sunset and cried because I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just for me, without Rita making it about her needs. I ran into Donna at the grocery store 2 weeks after I got back from the beach. She was in the produce section and clearly saw me but pretended she didn't until I walked right past her cart. Then she stopped me and said she needed to tell me something. She said Rita had been doing fine financially, and even paid back $300 she'd owed Donna from last year. Rita was working full-time and had her own apartment and wasn't actually struggling the way she'd claimed she would be. Donna said she was sorry for the messages she sent months ago calling me selfish and cruel. She said she believed Rita's version of events because Rita was convincing, but now she could see Rita had been lying about a lot of things. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Donna asked if we could maybe talk sometime, and I said maybe, but probably not soon. I appreciated that she could admit she was wrong, but I wasn't ready to rebuild relationships with people who attacked me for setting boundaries. 6 months after cutting off all support, I barely recognized my own life. I had $12,000 in savings. My credit score had gone up 60 points. I got a promotion at work that came with a raise I actually got to keep instead of sending to Rita. I started looking at buying a condo instead of renting, because I could actually afford a down payment now. Rita and I hadn't spoken in months, and I'd blocked her on everything, so I didn't even know what she was doing anymore. Sometimes I still felt guilty when I saw mothers and daughters together, or when someone talked about family obligations. The therapist said that guilt was trained into me and would take time to unlearn. I was building a life that belonged to me for the first time since college. I was making decisions based on what I wanted instead of what Rita demanded. I was learning what it felt like to have money in my account and know it would still be there next week. Rita and I would probably never have a real relationship, and that hurt in a way I was still processing. But I was finally living my own life, and that was worth more than her approval ever could be.